Hey there, I'm Nick Carlson. I created the Reimagining security breach video that has just absolutely blown up in the last few days. I made a poll on YouTube asking my viewers if they wanted to see a follow-up video to that video where I kind of address what's happened since then. And well, the overwhelming majority of you said, yes, I would like to see it. So who am I to deny my fans what they want? Even though at this point in the game, I cannot deny my fans what I want. So, yeah, this is going to be largely unscripted. I made an outline. I'll be consulting, the little document I made, but I'm just going to try and go off the cuff so I can just be as open and honest as possible to get everything out of the way. First things first, just thank you so much for ensuring that this video performed the way it did. I did not expect this at all. I was expecting maybe this video to get maybe 10,000 views most, maybe 30, 40, 50 comments that I'd be able to reply to, kind of typical of what my channel has been performing so far, but this was just completely unprecedented. And I know that a lot of outside attention drove the attention it got, but that's still how videos go viral anyway. So I'm shocked, I'm impressed, I'm grateful. So thank you all for, making this happen to me. I can only go up from here. There's no reason to stop now. I guess that brings me to the other reason why I'm making this video. Normally, if you look at my other videos, I do try and engage with comments wherever I could. And that was 100% my intention with the security breach video. But I mean, as of this point, it has 193K views and it has 1,300 comments. I just would not be able to hold a conversation with anyone in an effective manner. So this is another reason why this video is being made, to just address some of the comments I've been reading, because yes, I have been reading the comments, and just present an opportunity to address anything further. I guess the first thing I really want to talk about is the one controversy about this video that was 100% my fault and could have been totally unavoidable, which was the use of a fan artist's glam rock chica redesign in my reimagining. I'm just gonna kind of run through what happened. When the process of commissioning art with Sumizaki is I tell him what I want to see and he sends me drafts of it, and then I either approve or suggest changes. We were getting to night 2. He sent me some pictures that showed a very different looking glam rock chica than what I was used to seeing. And I looked at that and I said, is this your redesign? He says, no, I just found an image online. He sent me the image. I remember looking at the image and thinking, wow, this redesign looks really good. But I also didn't find a handle, didn't find a social media within the image. I told him, yeah, go ahead, and I said I'd credit the person. What I'd try and find out who did the actual redesign and then credit them later on. Obviously that didn't happen. I neglected to do it. I forgot. I mean, if you look through the video, I was very careful to credit fan artists whenever I could, but clearly I missed someone. It happened to be someone very important. I found out that the artist at shrimpface4 on Twitter, they spoke out about it. They said they were confused as to how it happened. People were lamenting them in the comments section. But I reached out to Shrimpface. I explained to them what happened. We both talked it through. Shrimpface said that they wished I would have reached out and asked for permission first, but ultimately they are okay with my use of the redesign in the video from now on. We both have made our peace, went our separate ways. So, and I also updated the pinned comment and the description to credit Shrimpface. So I guess that's settled. About as settled as it can be, rather. Which then brings to the other and the most significant controversy my video attained, was the depictions of gore and child mutilation that I featured in my reimagining. There's a lot of layers to this whole side of the story that I'm going to try and address each one I could find one at a time, just to try and give my perspective, my thoughts, and all that. So. The first thing I saw was accusations that all I did to my reimagining was just add gore. No, that's not all I did. my reimagining involved a complete like overhaul of the actual structure of the plot. It involved like different stakes, different goals. It involved reimagining the characters and how they interact with each other. Like the original game was like basically a survival story, but my reimagining is basically like a vengeance and a validation kind of story. You know, the focus of the antagonist is different. You know, Vanny's kind of like the main antagonist as opposed to just the surprise burn trap at the end. It's a bit more focused. It's a bit more fleshed out, you know, character-wise. And the gore doesn't even, the game isn't even like, you know, naturally gory. It's just happened to be those nightmare sequences from when you found, after you found each ghost. So to pretend as though all I did was just make it gory and disgusting and call that a reimagining, that's just objectively untrue. Which then brings me to my second point, which was people asking, was the gore really necessary? No. But when I mean no, I mean in the sense that when you ask yourself, is any artistic decision necessary? And the answer to that obviously is no. I mean, people have their own interpretations. People make their own choices of how they want to tell a story. And let's just focus on horror media for right now. Obviously, a horror story doesn't need to be gory to be a horror story. There are certain things that a horror story needs to be considered horror. It needs tension, it needs unease, it needs like a sense of dread. If you don't have any of those things and you call yourself a horror story, it's still not really a horror story. But as the diversity of like horror media overall goes in terms of like books, movies, video games, obviously, yeah, you don't need gore to tell a horror story. However, it is still a tool that is used to tell a story. Gore can be shocking. That's like the base like reaction it gets. Gore can be impactful. It can show like, you know, the inherent tragedy of a death or like a massacre or just showing the carnage of like something that's been inflicted, you know. Like in my reimagining's case, it was all about just showing like how fucked up these animatronics got, you know, and how these children really like suffered at their hands. It should come as no surprise that gore is pretty heavily featured even in mainstream horror. It's like you know, the Saw franchise comes to mind, but that involves adults, you might say. Well, I mean, I have to say, like, you know, in mainstream horror, like, you know, child mutilation is still pretty common. You know, look at The Shining. You've got the twins who are just, you know, strewn across the floor, covered in blood, their guts cut open with an axe. It's Chapter 1, you know, the highest grossing horror film of all time. You've got Georgie getting his arm ripped off, and he's like crawling in agony across the street for a good 5 seconds, like screaming in pain. Outlast 2, a video game I've talked about in the past that, you know, is still, you know, fairly mainstream. You know, there's a sequence where the player has to cross a pit of dead babies, and the only way to do that is to actually step across their corpses, and like they actually designed Foley of like, you know, bones crunching underfoot. That game also features like you know, ghostly depictions of children being hung, whatever. I don't know. Is it hanged or hung? I think it's hung by the neck. Like multiple times. Sometimes there's like, you know, literally hundreds of little Jessicas hanging by their necks from the ceiling. You also see her body like right as she's dying, basically. You can see like, you know, internal bleeding coming from the neck. I assume that's from a vertebrae like protruding. You can see like blood coming out of the nose, all that. So like child mutilation like in mainstream horror like isn't really like uncommon or unheard of. I bet you could find a lot more examples in more like, you know, artsy or esoteric horror as well. Nothing comes to my head at the moment, but I'm sure that people know what I'm talking about. And as for the actual gore, like as portrayed in my video, like believe it or not, it got like some pretty mixed reactions. For as many people as said that the gore was, you know, too much or too explicit, there are others who said that it was like underwhelming. It was nothing like it was built up to be. Some people said it was too cartoony to take seriously. Some people just said it looked like shit. So, I mean, you know, what are you going to do? You've got a lot of different perspectives on the gore, and, you know, what am I supposed to do? Listen to the people who said it was underwhelming, listen to the people who said it was too much. Which then brings me to what I think is the most important point of this video, which is the question of does gore, specifically extreme gore, belong in Five Nights at Freddy's? I said it before in the video, like Five Nights at Freddy's is just this really like interesting like property where it truly talks about some like really like horrid, like, you know, depraved things. Like, talk about any of the events that are mentioned in there. The you know, the bite of '83, the whole like, you know, murder of the children, that thing. You describe this just, you know, to a casual person, you know, they'll assume you're talking about some kind of like R-rated slasher film, but really it's just the way they're portrayed throughout the games. It's just all implicit horror. It's all in shadows. It's accessible. That's what it is. It's these horrible stories that are packaged and presented in a way that's pretty much for everyone. But then, of course, you get people who are, you know, into that kind of stuff. Then you also get people who are able to be given this stuff and not, like, you know, like freak out about it because just the way it's presented. It truly, like, FNAF's attracted this, like, super diverse audience of, like, you know, actual horror fans who, you know, love the implications, would like to see it go places that it hasn't gone before. And then these other folks who maybe aren't the biggest fans of horror, maybe they can't tolerate enough, but, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's, because of its way of presenting that horror, and also like the characters and the locations and like the other stuff, like the humor, like they can get with it too. So it's a difficult question, and I hate to give like a broad subjective answer, but I think the correct answer to that question, does Gore belong in FNAF? I think the best answer is it depends, like, you know, what you want to get out of it. As you've probably guessed, like, I happen to fall into that camp where I think that the Five Nights at Freddy's series could, like, you know, definitely use, you know, some violence and some gore and some, you know, horrible depictions. Just because I think it's capable of making that jump. Especially the earlier games where they had that kind of dark edge I talked about in the video. You know, like, I don't think like the jump from, you know, that to, you know, something kind of like with like Outlast levels of gore would be too much to handle. And that was my big problem with Security Breach, is that it really, like, it seemed like it did not have that edge whatsoever. I really feel like they deliberately made an effort to make the game as accessible to, like, you know, the younger or less tolerant crowds as they could. I think that harmed the game. I think that that made some fans like me a bit irritated. The other thing to mention is that with a fandom as diverse as Five Nights at Freddy's, of course you're going to get, like, artists who, and the creators and just fans who want an interpretation of Five Nights at Freddy's that's you know, more, you know, gory, more graphic, more violent. I am far from the first or only creator to portray like extreme gore and child mutilation in regards to this franchise, and I think what really motivates, like, the artists like that is just their realization that when you have, like, you know, soft human flesh and like 300-pound metallic monsters, you got, you know, metal and flesh colliding together, you know, one of those things is going to give, and it's not going to be the metal. So that's again, that just goes back to, like, you know, what we got out of Five Nights at Freddy's. We recognize the horrific implications of, you know, a claw coming out of an animatronic stomach and, like, grabbing a small girl. We see the implications of, you know, dead bodies being stuffed into suits. So we see that, and we just want to draw it out and you know, see what that would be really like, because that's fascinating to us, and it's like, it allows us to look at this property from, like, new angles we never even would have considered. Another tidbit I'd like to add is, as I was browsing YouTube the other day, I came across a recommended video. It was this creator named, I think, Reimagining Animation. What he apparently he creates, like, renders of, like, certain, like, scenes from Five Nights at Freddy's, and one of them happened to feature the bite of '83, and I'm just gonna play it now. Check this out. Now, I'm going to give my hot take. I think what you just saw there is a lot more disturbing than anything in my video. It's in 3 dimensions. It moves. You see the blood actually come out and splatter. You see, like, you know, the jaw, like, malfunctioning and, like, struggling with the skull. You see, you hear the child, like, squirming and crying in agony. Like, that bothered me, honestly, a lot. It was hard to watch, admittedly, even for someone like me. But I didn't care, and where was the Twitter mob for that one? Where is the indignation for that? Nowhere, I guess. Which leads me to my other point. Some of you pointed out that the reason this video became as wildly successful as it did is because of the discourse that erupted on FNAF Twitter. I have not seen a lot of like nastiness or hatred like directed like at me specifically. People would just like kind of talk about me in their own threads. They wouldn't like name me. They wouldn't like try and tag me or anything like that. They just kind of like went off about the video more than myself. But I do read that. I did see kind of the discourse that was going on, and let me just say it's a lot of what they've been saying is just completely bad faith and untrue and kind of gross in my opinion. I'm not going to go into too much detail about exactly what they said, but let's just say that if any of their claims would be taken seriously, I'd probably be like arrested or something like that. I guess like the only thing I could really like say about that whole thing is that the art that a person like creates or like commissions in my case is absolutely not indicative of like any character flaws about them. Like I'll give one example. Like someone in a tweet basically accused me of being a child predator with a gore fetish, and I mean, are we just to like ascribe these like horrible things to like everyone who draws like dark messed up art? I mean, is that like does the art determine the artist? Is it that kind of thing? I mean, even if it is like shocking and unpleasant to someone like you, no, it really doesn't. People draw like not safe for life, not safe for work art all the time. Does that mean they're bad people? Mean they're perverts? Absolutely not. I mean, sure, there are some cases like anime underage porn or something like that, but that's a whole other debate. I'm not even going to touch that with a 30-foot pole. The other lesson I think for like that Twitter crowd, I think, is alternate perspectives and tastes and interpretations, like especially those that you don't like really approve of. They exist outside of your circle, and they are appreciated and admired and supported by so many other people outside your circle. And that whether or not you disapprove of it, that is absolutely not the same thing as determining something as morally good or morally bad. Now comes the part of the video where I actually talk about things I could have done better. I do read the comments, and actually Zumazaki mentioned this to me as well. But I saw a lot of comments suggesting this too. What if I had reimagined the nightmare sequences that reveals each child's fate as like a Atari 8-bit style like nightmare, as seen in like FNAF 2 and FNAF 3? Yeah, I agree. That's a very good idea. It's very clever. A good callback to the previous FNAF games as well. I mean, I could totally have seen myself doing that, during the commissioning phase, but I didn't. What we got is what we got. Great idea, but I still stand by my vision. The other thing I noticed is that even despite all the positive comments, even despite all the comments that weren't calling me terrible things, people still said, why didn't you put a content warning there? And to be honest with you all, I agree. I agree. I did not put a content warning anywhere in the video. I think it would have been prudent to do so. The reason why I didn't, it was just there's like two reasons really. One, like as you probably guessed before, I'm just used to gore and violence and stuff like that, and I don't mind seeing it in my horror media, so maybe I just didn't like consider what other people would have thought. Two, just generally editing the video, when you're staring at this thing for like weeks, months on end, constantly moving things around, or determining how to perfectly place each thing on the timeline, you just become desensitized to your own work, or in this case, the work you commissioned. It really is like I'm not expecting anyone. I'm not trying to make you like understand. I'm not trying to like excuse you or anything. I'm just trying to tell you like what came from my end, so that no one's thinking I just wanted to deliberately traumatize people with heavily edited flashing gore in the first 5 seconds of the video. Definitely not the case. I just forgot to put it in there, and I should have. Which brings me to the other point about content warnings and trigger warnings and all that. will notice that, because of the backlash, I did put like, the warning in the thumbnail, in the description, and also in the pinned comment, because I just thought it was necessary. I also did not want to, at the time, take the video down and re-edit it and put it back up, because I just wanted to keep the momentum going and keep this kind of moment, preserved as long as it can. I mean, I don't know how long the video's going to stay up, to be honest. I don't know if YouTube's going to take it down or anything like that, but this whole like argument about trigger warnings and content warnings, it's just kind of an interesting thing that's also not for this video, but I will say that content warnings are much more common than I think we realize. If like half the reality TV you watch always has that tag at the beginning, viewer discretion is advised. This program contains content maybe disturbing to some viewers, something along those lines. And we really like ignored that for all this time until people started calling them trigger warnings. And trigger warnings have this whole like other like, packaged set of like ideas and beliefs with them that, again, I'm not going to go into in this video, but I do think there's a difference between like a content warning and a trigger warning. I should have put a content warning. If I could go back in time and do that, then I would have, but I didn't. I did all I could to make up for it, so here we are. At the end of the day, however, there's no easy way to say it. While I will like reprimand myself for not putting up a content warning, I will not apologize for my ideas and my interpretations. That's me. That's who I am as a horror creator, as a guy who commissions art. That's what I want to see. And if you don't like it, honestly, like, complain about it, but, click away, don't watch my stuff, and definitely do not call me a child predator either, because that is not only untrue, but also unfair. And I think just on a conceptual level, I think getting called a child predator is worse than coming across, child gore online, especially like illustrated child gore. So with that out of the way, next, the other thing I want to turn my attention to is the ending to my reimagining. Some people seemed confused by this. Like, I do read the comments. Some people didn't quite understand what was happening. So basically, at the end of night 6, Gregory finds the spirits of the children whom had been personally murdered by Vanny, as opposed to murdered by the other animatronics. He gathers them up. They go and attack Vanny. And do you remember that scene from The Mummy where that ghost chariot is like dragging Imhotep's immortal soul out of his body? That's kind of what I was going for. The ghosts were kind of dragging like the demonic evil spirit of Vanny like out of Vanessa's body. That was what I was trying to go for. It would have rendered Vanny down to just, Vanessa in a Vanny costume. And in my reimagining, the player would have a choice at the end whether or not to save Freddy and leave Vanessa to her fate, or to save Vanessa and risk losing Freddy because he's malfunctioning and all that. I made this kind of like half serious, half joke statement in the video where I said that I, like the developers, ran out of time and money to effectively come up with a good ending. I mean, that was true. I was trying to get this video out in a timely manner, and also commissioning art was just getting super expensive, and I hate to have skimped out on the ending, but that's just how things happen for me. So with all that taken care of, what's next for my channel? Well, people have said like both like seriously and jokingly that I should just become like a FNAF channel for the next year or something like that, which is not a bad idea. From my community posts, you would see that I am also just a horror author. I'm a published novelist. I write short horror for Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I'm just a junkie for all things like horror in general, but this FNAF video is the one that blew up, so I might as well ride that wave while I can, which I'm going to. The next few videos of mine are probably going to be about the Five Nights at Freddy's books, the first trilogy. I'm going to be reading those and giving my thoughts. I think that's about it for this video. Like I said before, if you still have concerns or comments or questions, comment below. I will try and respond to as many as I can. I'll try and clarify things in the pinned comment if I can, but otherwise, thank you all for watching. I will see you all next time when I'm reviewing The Silver Eyes.